Hello everyone, this is Rachit and today we are going to talk about what Agile methodology is and what Scrum is. But first, before learning anything, let us first understand why this specific methodology came into picture and what was the issues that we were facing. So before this, maybe nearly 20 years back, we were building our application as a monolith. What monolith means that it is a single repo where all your code resides, and making a small change can break any number of places, and it can be interconnected at any number of places. So it was very difficult to make even a small change that will not break the entire flow. So when we were talking about monoliths, when we were dealing with monoliths, we were facing this issue that even if we are changing a small CSS, or even if we are changing a small feature, we don't specifically know where all it can affect. So the testing was done on the whole project itself, and it was a very tedious task. This could have taken maybe days, weeks, or even sometimes months. Also, we were using waterfall model. In waterfall model, the same methodology that I just speak of, the monoliths, it was basically for waterfall model. In waterfall model, we make change, test the whole application, and make users know that we will be down for some time, and new features are coming up in our system. So those features were mostly very big features because it was taking days or weeks. So we try to make a very big change in our website and then deliver it to the end user without even knowing whether the end user is happy with it or not, right? Agile methodology came into picture to deal with these two issues. In agile methodology, we say that the customer is the main person who is using the website. He should be the happiest. So we divided our code into very small front ends, micro front ends or microservices, and those microservices were not dependent on each other. It was a specific chunk of code to deal with a specific chunk of feature, right? So if you change something in that feature, we know that we only need to test that specific microservice and not the whole system. So to make it fast, agile methodology came into picture. What agile methodology says is you make a small change, you test that small change, you have a customer feedback, and you improve on the change that you have done, and then when the all the improvements are done, everything is finalized, you make it into production. Correct? This specific keyword, uh, that is your customer feedback, is very important in agile methodology, right? Let's first check what the waterfall model was saying. Before that, let's talk about the agenda of this course. uh, Firstly, we will know why do we need agile, what is agile, the key terms of agile, what are the advantages of agile, how to implement agile, and what are the frameworks that we use in agile methodology, right? Okay. Firstly, why do we need agile? Like I said, we were using waterfall model. Waterfall model, what it says is, right, you require the you gather the requirements, right, from your before even implementing it, you require all the features that is going to happen, and you club those features. You do not have a specific plan. You are just saying that I need something like Amazon, something like Flipkart, something like Facebook, right? And it was a very dull explanation. It depends on the implementer what specific features that needs to be implemented. Your product manager or your manager just comes and says that we are going to build an e-commerce website, that we are going to build a Facebook type of system, that we are going to build a Google type of system, right? And then the design process comes in. Your whole project is architected, what we are going to do and how we are going to do, and we take a very large bulk of requirements and try to implement it. Okay, then the implementation process comes in. We develop all the things, we test all the things. In the verification process, we check that everything is working fine for the whole project or not, or have we break any flow that was already existing, right? And then the maintenance system comes in. When we deliver the whole project, then we just have to maintain that specific project in itself, uh, finding out some bugs, or if the user is saying that he is facing some specific issues on specific systems and things like those. In this waterfall model, a large amount of time was given to the documentation. The documentation could have been 100 pages, 200 pages, or sometimes it is of 1,000 pages as well. So it is a very bulky project. It is a very bulky project. It is a very bulky system that we were working on, right? Now, what Agile is? In Agile, we divide everything into iterations. What iteration means is we have one specific chunk of a feature that we are going to work on, and we work on these cycles. So your whole project is divided into multiple sprints. In each sprint, we gather the requirements, we design the system just for that specific feature. We develop it, we test that, we deploy it in our stagings or dev environments. We review the changes, and then if something comes up, we again check the designs, we develop, we test, we deploy, we review. When this whole process is done, we launch that specific feature. Then we plan for the next feature, and then for that specific feature, we design, develop, test, deploy, review. When this whole cycle gets completed, we launch that specific feature, then plan for the next feature. By launching, I'm not saying that it is going to production. For example, suppose you have to integrate your payment system. So you need a front end, you need an email integration, and then you need a payment system, right? So maybe the front end gets picked up in sprint one, then we plan for the email integration, which gets picked up in sprint two, and then for the payment integration, we gets picked up in sprint three. And when this whole process gets completed, we integrate everything. We again design, develop, test, deploy, review, and then we launch it into production. Okay. So uh, for most of the companies, your sprint is mostly for between 1 to 3 weeks, right? In 70% of the company, it is of 2 weeks. So uh, it is for that specific feature that you are going to do. So for the next 2 weeks, you exactly know what you are going to develop, and the testers know what they are going to test. Your managers know what they are expecting from that feature, and things like those. So the whole project is divided into 2 weeks each. In this way, you just need to focus on the features in hand. You do not have to focus on the future goal, and you do not have to focus on very bulk features under one go. You know exactly what specific feature that you need, what are their requirements. It is easy to divide and conquer. right? Let's see what are the key terms of agile. So uh, you focus on the individual and their interactions. You focus on the working software first, then the documentation, right? You have customer collaboration. So whenever you deploy a feature, you get the customer feedback, and then you check, okay, this is not as per what uh, they wanted. We can improve in this, and this is the specific things that can be improved. So your customer collaboration plays a very vital role in agile, and that makes your software even better because on work on waterfall you were not uh, involving customers until and unless you develop the whole project, right? So developers uh, were focusing on building the whole project. Customers were also giving them feedbacks on the whole project, and if they face some specific issue at some specific place, it was very difficult to get into touch with the customers, and it was very difficult to change something without uh, breaking the whole flow. So things like those, and we respond to the change that we get from the customers without uh, following a specific plan that we are going to do. So in agile, you do not pre assume that this is the things that customer is going to ask you for. We ask the customers directly that, see, this is the feature that we have developed. Please give me feedback. What else do you need in this feature, right? And then improve on this. What does principles of agile say? That early delivery of the product, right? When you are breaking down into specific small features, you get the deliveries very early uh, without waiting for months to deliver the whole project. You adapt to changes. You get frequent delivery, right? Your business and developers get into corporations. So in agile, we work together, both the business owners and the developers, to work on a specific features and how they can make it better over time. So we work as a team, right? We have motivated individuals because they do not have a pressure to deliver the whole project or think of the whole project beforehand. They just have to focus on some specific parts of that project. We have face to face interactions that we sit with the customers itself, get their feedback and whatever they want. We have a working software very early rather than delivering the whole project. So we even if we are creating a copy of Amazon, so we have worked on the payment systems. That software in itself gets delivered without uh, interacting with the other parts of the software. You maintain a constant pace because each sprint deliverables gets into 2 weeks. So for every 2 week, they can expect some new features. We have technical brilliance because when we just make our brain work on a very specific task, the brilliance comes by default. We have simplicity, we have teams, self-organization, and regular reflection and adjustments, right? What are the advantages of agile? First advantages is we get more control over the product. We have better productivity, we have better quality, we have higher customer satisfaction, and we have higher returns on investment, right? For example, if you're going to build uh, a very new technology, if you are going to build a copy of Amazon for your own company, right? So you can deliver small chunks of features so that you get in the market very early. You are not waiting for the whole project to get completed, because if you wait maybe maybe the project can take 1 year. In that 1 year, your idea can be implemented by some other guy or some other company, and your idea is not your idea anymore, right? You may have faced such issues before that. You have some brilliant idea, but before you get into work or before you get your project completed, some other person or some other company has already implemented your idea, and your idea is not worth anymore, right? Which gets solved with agile, where you uh, s- where you divide your project into very small chunks and decide what will be the flow in which users will get the features, right? You deliver a small feature, users work on it, gives you feedback, right? And lets you improve on that specific features in itself. Then you deliver a second feature, same thing happens. So you have more control over your product, you have better productivity over your product, you get better quality because it is coming from customers. Your customers are more satisfied because they have given you feedback and they get exactly what they want, and your returns on investments are even much more higher, because if you are paying for 1 whole year without getting any results for that 1 year, it is better that you pay for 2 weeks and get results for 2 week, right? So your investments are lower. You have to focus on first 2 weeks, and you get a better return on your investments because you already have a customer base. Your customers are giving feedback, right? Okay. Now, how to implement agile? We have multiple methods of implementing agile. We have Scrum, we have extreme programming, we have retrospectives, we have sprints, we have Kanban, right? They are just different methods of implementing your agile framework. Okay. Most of the companies, maybe even 80 to 90% of the companies work on Scrum, right? But it is not that they work on specific nodes that Scrum says, specific steps that Scrum says. Mostly they pick up something from Scrum, something from extreme programming, something from Kanban, etc. Right? So you will always face some of the combinations of all these things, right? Let's see what Scrum is. So before we go to Scrum, we need to see who all are working for that project, right? You will have someone called product owner. You can think of a product owner as your manager. He may or may not have a technical background, but he know what your product requires and how what specific he is looking at that feature, right? So he is the person with ideas. He is the person who exactly knows what he wants of that feature of that product, right? Then you have a scrum master. The main reason for a scrum master is he is technical person, because your product owner may or may not be a technical person, but your scrum master has to be a technical person. You can even think him of a manager, right? He also knows, he divides your product into multiple chunks, uh, get them prioritized, right? Sit with product manager or product owner to know what exactly he is looking for. He divides it into small cards, right? And he makes sure that in the sprint, whatever delivery you promised, you are delivering those on your to your product owner, correct? Then your team comes. These comprises of developers, testers, and Maybe in some other companies, they may have more rules regarding those, but mostly there are developers and testers, right? So you have in Scrum, you firstly have a product backlog. These contains all the tasks that your product or your project requires to get to the final stage, right? So if you are making your Amazon, so these product backlogs will have everything that makes Amazon Amazon, right? Then your product owner and your Scrum Master sits together, prioritize things on what we want first, then what we want, then what we want, and things like those. So they sit together in a sprint planning, right? They prioritize things, get it into that sprint backlog, which will be your focus for the next 2 weeks, right? Deliver these to the Scrum team, right? And your Scrum teams decide who is going to pick what. For example, there are two front end devs, there are three back end devs, and there are two testers. So front end devs decide these are the tasks that I'm going to do. Back end devs decide these are the tasks that I am going to do. Testers decide when these tasks gets completed, how they are going to test, and things like those. Here, daily scrum happens. In daily scrum, it is just a small 15 minutes meeting where you sit together and tell how is the progress. Are you stuck somewhere? Do you need help? Right? Or uh, something is a blocker and you will not be able to deliver this in time. How can we deprioritize this or prioritize this, and things like those? What are the changes required? When when you go to the code, you see the code base, you say that this will not happen in such a such manner that you decided. We need to change our flow. We need to divide it into smaller chunks, and uh, this will affect the deliverables. This is how much I'm going to deliver in the next 2 weeks, right? uh, Everything goes incrementally. Then comes the sprint review. In a sprint review, you basically say that in the last 2 weeks, uh, what all accomplishment did we do, and what all things we were not able to do, how the his sprint went overall, right? uh, and there comes sprint retrospective, where everything, what happened wrong, what happened good, how can we improve, things like those happen. And then your next sprint planning occurs, right? Remember that in I'm not saying that in 2 weeks everything will go into production, right? You are focusing on a very small task that you are saying that you will be able to deliver at least till the stagings where your product owners and testers can see that whatever you have developed is according to whatever they needed or not, right? When all the integrations gets completed, maybe your product or your feature is that big that it requires at least 6 to 7 weeks, right? If we talk about 2 weeks sprint, then it requires at least three sprint time to get completed. That is okay. But the main motive is you have already planned for the whole project. You have divided and prioritized what we need first and how will we integrate to the next feature that we are thinking of. You plan it out. You focus on that specific feature on hand for the next 2 weeks. Make it as good as possible. Write some small documentation, for example, even in your code base or something like those. Here documentation is not that much required, but it is always a good practice to have some kind of documentation while you are coding, so that your Next developer who is handling your feature gets a very good idea of what you have developed and how you have developed it. Your documentation can be a very small part. For example, you write comments and things like those so that at least the next developer who is working on that feature gets to know, okay, this is what you were trying to do, this is what you have done, and this is how I'm going to change in the existing feature without breaking it. Okay. Now comes extreme programming. This is another framework that uh, we mostly use, right? Scrum and extreme programming are two different things. These are the frameworks that we use to implement Agile, right? Agile basically means uh, fast, right? So you do everything as fast as possible. You deliver the end project as fast as possible without uh, dealing with without reducing the quality of the project, right? In extreme programming, you have some user stories, right? Okay. You have some release planning that these many user stories are going to be released in the next 2 weeks or next 8 weeks or something like those. Here 2 weeks are not important. In Scrum, we were divided we were dividing it into multiple sprints. In Scrum, we were divided in multiple sprints of 2 weeks exactly. But in your extreme programming, that can vary as per your requirements, right? So, for example, you have 4 user stories. You say that these 4 user stories I can deliver it in 1 week. The next 4 user stories I can deliver it in 8 weeks. The next 4 user stories I can deliver it into 2 days, right? So, in this scenario, it depends on the user stories and whatever the requirements are. Okay. You have a plan release, you make the iterations, you develop it, create new stories, fix the bugs, create bugs, and things like those, right? And at the last, we have customer approval, and we do small releases. Okay. Here is another framework which is called lean programming. In this, we eliminate the waste, we empower the team, we deliver everything fast, we optimize the whole thing, we focus on the build quality, we differ in decisions, we amplify learnings, then this things goes on, right? The most important thing is uh, we are working as a team in lean programming, right? So it is not an uh, a single point of failure that this developer was doing something wrong or this product owner has not planned everything well or things like those. We work as a team and we deliver it as a team. In Kanban, this is the most usually it is the most things that your softwares have implemented. For example, you will see it in Jira. So we say that we have multiple cycles, you can say, of your specific feature, right? So we have cards in to dos, right? Which says that you need to do specifically this thing, you need to do specifically this thing. We have some descriptions and we have the timeline inside those cards, right? Whatever the card we work on, we push it into progress, right? When this is done, we move it into done, right? Then it goes to your testers. Testers is test that specific thing. You deploy it into some stagings and things like those. If you say something is not working right, this needs to be deprioritized. You can push it into backlog. This is a sprint backlog, right? Or you can even push it into product backlogs, that we do not require such and such feature at the moment according to our customers. We can push it into a product backlog and we can work it into future. Okay. A very common example is Jira, where you have cards, you push it to the next cycle. Your Scrum Master and product owners can simply see what are the cards that you need to do, what are in progress, are you on track or not, right? And what happens. There is one more framework which is called Crystal, right? In Crystal, it is basically depends on what kind of company you work on. If there are six people in the company, you focus something else, you work like something else. There are 7 to 20 people. The methodologies can change. You have 21 to 40 people. Your methodology can change. It basically depends on what kind of team do you have. Do you have less backend developers? Do you have less front end developers? Do you have less DevOps and things like those? So this becomes very custom made, specific to your company, uh, on what works best for your company. Cool. And here we came into this agile framework. Just to recap, agile works on faster development, faster delivery. You have customer that works for you. You have customer feedbacks. You improve on those feedbacks. You work on the improvements and you deliver the project as soon as possible in a smaller chunks, so that your idea does not go to waste or some other people does not implement your idea before you do. And you have good quality of code, good quality of product, because your customer himself is giving you feedbacks on how to improve and where to improve, right? Your scrum is uh, divided into multiple sprints of 2 weeks, right? You you deliver small features, you test it out, you get the code reviewed, you improve on the code reviews, right? You implement, or you focus on the bugs that you got. Testers test it out for a very small chunks, right? And the integration can happen after 2 to 3 sprints. That will be all